How you doing, people? Welcome to the Rubin Report. I am
Dave Rubin.
That is
Chad Einbinder.
And who's she?
Kelly Carlin.
All right, I guess we have a show. Let's do it. Okay, we had another beheading video from ISIS. Steven Sotloff, who is an American journalist.
Have yet again, through your actions, killed yet another American citizen. So just as your missiles continue to strike our people, our knife will continue to strike the necks of your people. Because of your insistence in continuing your bombings in our Middle East and the Mosul Dam, despite our serious warnings. You, Obama, have yet again, through your actions, killed yet another American citizen. So just as your missiles continue to strike our people, our knife will continue to strike the neck.
Okay, so we obviously didn't show the beheading itself there. YouTube's taking the videos down. Twitter is banning people that post it. But I wanted to at least get you guys the message on that. This, of course, comes about 2 weeks after they did the same exact things to James Foley, another American photojournalist. And supposedly now they have a British journalist that they plan on doing this to. And apparently there's about 20 other people that they have being held hostage right now. I mean, we've been doing this every week now. You've been tweeting a lot about this, just this sort of savagery that we're seeing. How do we make any sense of what's going on over there?
This is the way I've been thinking about it lately. I mean, it's horrific, and it stopped me in my tracks. And even when the video came up in the studio here, I don't even want to see the whole situation. Trigger warning, you know, all that kind of stuff. And this is going to tie into a future topic we've got going today. Okay. But basically, this shit's been going on a long fucking time. And the fact that we
cussing on this show?
Oh yeah, you can cuss. When it comes to beheading, you can cuss.
And the way we now have it videotape and high production value, I want to add, that's kind of the creepiest part of all of this. But this has been going on in humanity for tens of thousands of years, or at least, I don't know, but at least a couple of thousands of years with civilization and war and empires and all that. So it's horrific and it's insane, and yet welcome to the human species. I don't know what to say. It's just it's just so much for me.
Yeah, so let's just talk about the video themselves. Do we have to show these things? Because, you know, when Twitter banned all the people for putting up the video, I kind of think you have to have access to it so we know what's going on. Of course, you don't want to push out their propaganda and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what do you think about just showing the videos themselves? Because some people do want to see the part that we didn't show there.
I would never want to see the part that they didn't show. I mean, I have enough imagination left to fill in that horrific blank.
Hello?
Yeah.
But I think you have to have access to, you know, it has to be some form of a free media. You have to show these things to educate and inform.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So you show it in a situation where you are educating and informing, but just having it loose on the internet for and bless you, YouTuber commenters, for YouTuber commenters to talk about, you know, how gay he is and sucking his dick or something. I don't know. That worries me. You know, people using it to discuss geopolitical situations, terrorism, trauma, whatever it is. Yeah, sure, but I don't know. I don't think people should be tweeting this shit.
All right, so that being said, let's not get too hung up on the beheadings themselves, but apparently ISIS is actually much bigger than we thought. We've got some interesting info here. So 2 quotes here. The first one is from a security expert in Baghdad. He said, the Islamic State didn't come from nowhere. It's an extension of groups that existed before, historically and ideologically. Okay, that's not major news. The second one here, from a political analyst in Jordan, I thought was the interesting one. The Islamic State's members have multiplied in a very dangerous way. Having plenty of arms and funding has made ISIS swallow the fighters of other Sunni insurgent groups. So basically, they're just combining all these groups that we funded half of them, and the ones that we didn't fund, now they have their weapons. Now they're saying there's about 100,000 of them. 2 weeks ago, they thought there was 40,000 of them. There's tons of British people, like the guy who did the beheading in that video. Is this one of these things where the U.S. is just damned if we do, damned if we don't? If we go in, more people hate us. We don't do anything, more people get killed, but nobody else is going to do anything, so we're just fucked.
Yeah, I think it is in the damn do we. It's almost like trying to invade Coachella. You know,
I like where you're going with
or
this.
if you took Coachella and Burning Man and had them attack each other, and then whatever was left over, those people became ISIS.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm actually with you on this.
And I really think that if we think about it in the raw numbers of 100,000, that's where we can target and have a strategy. Like 100,000 people, that's about 750 porta potties to service. So we just look for a caravan of porta potties, bomb the S out of that, in case my kids are watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
They've never heard that word.
You know, seriously, I think that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going with, I mean, what do we do? Do we bomb? And now everyone
Yeah,
seems to be for bombing.
We
You know, no
are-
troops, but just send some bombs.
Look, how did this mess start 12 years ago?
Yeah.
Because we bombed Iraq. That's how this mess started. Look, when you take dictators like Saddam Hussein and Assad in Syria and people like that who are like really rule with an iron fist, these tribal regions, and you remove them, you get a lot of tribal energy and blood and beheading and shit like that goes on. This, you know, the scary thing is these people have access to money and arms and, you know, things like that now, and bigger things, and hopefully not dirty bombs and shit like that. I'm hoping that the infighting will start, because it always does with these groups.
I'm pretty sure the infighting has started.
Yeah, and the infighting even in the ISIS will start. And then, but also, man, I watched a video, I don't know if anyone saw this, of an Iraqi TV show, they still have them there, believe it or not, with some Arab gentlemen in Arab headdresses. I don't know if that makes, I think that makes them Sunni. And anyway, I'm not an expert in any of this. They were sitting around talking about the Christian community in some of these cities and how they're being targeted. And one of these men in full Arab headdress began weeping for his Christian friends. And I was like, hope. Hope, 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 hope. So there's a lot of humanity left in these countries, a lot of humanity in the population. We need to support those people.
Yeah.
With ways to combat these bad people, but...
So how do you support humanity, right? Like everyone agrees with that, right? That sounds good. We have to support humanity. Humanity's not usually supported
It's
by
ugly.
bombs.
It's ugly.
You know, nobody gets their house bombed and things.
There will be bombing.
You know,
There will be bombing.
Yeah.
There will be killing.
Yeah.
What about the rest of the world? Why is it always us? Is it because everyone knows that we're sort of addicted to intervention? Like they know that they don't have to do anything. Like really, England, France, like this is what we do. But doesn't it show?
Superman. We're the Superman country.
But doesn't it show like sort of what a farce the UN and NATO and everything really is? Because at the end of the day, it's about us, whether we like it or not, right?
Well, it's about, I think, whoever has the most toys and the most money.
But that's us.
And the best
Right.
Doc Martens. I mean, our boots will be on the ground again in that area.
Do you really think so? Supposedly they're
It's
sending.
going to have to
Absolutely.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
supposedly this morning Obama sent 350 more troops. That's obviously nothing, but it's something.
Those are CIA guys.
Yeah.
Or they're in charge of finding those porta potties, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so last thought on this, and then we'll move on to some happier stuff. But with all these reports about all this stuff, and now, you know, Rick Perry, not that I like to quote Rick Perry, but he's saying they're coming through the border in Mexico, and today they found this guy in Minnesota.
ISIS is coming through the border?
Yeah, that's what he's saying, and they got this guy in Minnesota who was working for Delta, who apparently left to go fight for ISIS.
Oh, yeah.
So is something going to happen here? I mean,
we're
it's,
gonna
it's just
invade.
inevitable, right? Like, it's just inevitable.
It's time to invade Texas if they're coming through Mexico.
Or just annex it off.
And I'm not looking at you, Austin.
Yeah,
No.
that's a reverse annex. I think if you give someone, that's reverse of
Yeah.
annex.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. The
Yeah, yeah.
pushing,
No, no,
the
you want
anti-annex.
That's a
you want to
non-annex.
piss off ISIS? Try to give them Texas. Okay. Yeah, then they'll be pissed.
Yeah. What do you think, though? I mean, it's inevitable, like something.
Yeah, there's no way they can protect us from every single possible little bit of. I mean, no matter how many shoes they check at the airport.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be vigilant, and yet there's too many people. There's too many ways to travel. There's too many forests to climb through. Something will happen, and that's frightening and scary. And it's.
But don't you think there's the parallels from history? I mean, that's one of the things I really respect about you is your ability to remember stuff. And I'm not just talking
It's
about what you had
waning.
for breakfast tomorrow or
It's
yesterday.
waning.
But you know, if you look at the First World War and what happened there with the Huns, you know, with Germany, and then how that set the stage for the sons of that.
Yeah.
Not unlike we're hearing that it's ex-Ba'athist, Saddam military guys and their sons. When I heard that, I'm like, oh, so this becomes around the communal fire, whether that be a stove or an actual fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're remembering how their days of glory, and they're passing that anger and that desolation and that lack of opportunity to their sons, who are now joining a movement which ended up becoming a Reich
Right.
in Germany in the 30s. there's a lot of parallels that when you decimate a culture and you don't fly over that culture and drop a bunch of Sears and Roebuck catalogs so they can see how to rebuild, what will fill that void is usually anger, vehemence, and
yeah. Well, as I think I've said every week, we should be dropping PlayStation instead of bombs, and then maybe they'd have something to do, or porn, or what else?
Sure.
What do people do? Porn, PlayStation. Got anything else with a P? Popcorn.
Popcorn, potato chips.
Potato chips. There you go.
Yeah.
We've solved the Middle East. Okay, let's move on. President Obama did 4 fundraisers last week. A lot of people giving him shit for all the fundraisers and the golf and all that stuff. I don't want to focus on that. But he had an interesting quote about everything that's been going on and the media's relation to making us all crazy. Let's take a look. He said, I can see why a lot of folks are troubled. The world's always been messy. We're just noticing now in part because of social media. If you watch the nightly news, it feels like the world is falling apart, but it's been challenging for quite a while. We will get through these challenging times just like we have in the past. Okay. Now, I'm sort of on board with a little of that, right? I mean, we see all this stuff now. We see the beheadings immediately. We don't have to wait for the nightly news. We get all the videos, all that stuff. On the other hand, the media's been pretty soft on the guy, so it seems like it's a little disingenuous.
The media, it's not about being soft on Obama. It's what the media feeds the public and how they shape what's going on in the world. And this is communications 101 stuff.
Right.
The media has a bias. Their job is to, if it bleeds, it leads. And if there's any kind of drama, if there's a need for Superman to come along to solve something, they will put that on the TV. And so completely, we are inundated. And so you have the nightly news, which has always been horrific. I mean, if you lived through the Vietnam era, nightly news was pretty grim. Nixon, Vietnam, all that kind of stuff. All the way through, but now you have the echo chamber. Now everybody's putting it on their Facebook wall, and it's this, and my opinion, and this, and Twitter. So it feels like the same news story. You're now seeing it probably 10 or 100 times a day.
Yeah.
It affects the brain.
So does it affect your brain? Because I definitely think it does. Kelly and I have talked about this a lot. That you're constantly, if you have your phone and your Twitter, and we're going to talk about this later also, but if you have this stuff, you're just being slammed by this information repeatedly. So does Obama at least have a point there that it maybe seems worse now just because of the access?
Do you mean like that the media has turned into AM radio? That it's that since the hostage crisis between Reagan and Carter when they went to the 24-hour news cycle, it's now basically Billy, don't be a hero, except it's Billy, don't blow up or behead anybody in the Middle East. I mean, their objectivity gone, their impartiality gone, they're bought and paid for is what's there. The 24-hour news cycle is just beating us to death like AM radio can make you, like Katrina and the Waves walking on sunshine.
Yeah.
I actually have that song in my head from 1987 because of the repetition, which is now a part of our news media.
Right, you got to just keep that song going just so you can get through the day.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on the right and you're watching Fox, or if you're on the left and you're watching MSNBC, you're basically a starbelly sneech or a sneech without a star, but you're just cranking the same 15 minutes, and it goes from each talking head.
Right.
And if you lived before this period of time, you realize that that's not what the media, the news is supposed to be.
Yeah.
It bleeds, it leads was not part of the problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's that it bleeds, it leads, brought to you by Dial. For a manly wash of the blood that's all over your hands now.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's just horrible.
we talk about this all the time, that look, if you turn on Fox, you're getting Republican Party's view. If you turn on MSNBC, you're getting the administration's view. And if you turn on CNN, they're putting up just people on both sides, but then there's no analysis. They don't tell you what the truth is. They just put up PR guys on both sides. So so we're all with holograms. The holograms are good, though. I like the holograms.
Yeah, pretty good.
We'll be doing this by holograms by next year,
Excellent.
I hope. All right, so I get it. We all hate the media. Okay, media sucks. We're all on board with that theory.
Right.
But is there still something a little? Is it possible that what he's saying is true? And not true. So the media sucks. We're all on board with that. But then, is it possible that things are worse now, but we can't filter it properly because of all this nonsense? Don't things seem a little worse now? Like there's so much shit going on between Ukraine and Gaza and Syria and Iraq and Ebola and is it possible that things maybe are worse?
There is a lot going on,
But is there always a lot going on?
And I think there's always been a lot going on,
Yeah.
and we are just so interconnected now. There's very few walls between towns, nations, villages, and there's no walls, and so it's a lot of information. And yes, maybe it's a little bit of a spike of horribleness. And yes, I mean, it's been a bad month. It feels like it's been a bad month, you know, and it's difficult. But this is where I think the education system really needs to change. Media literacy needs to start in kindergarten. Yeah. Kids need to learn that when they go to a website or they turn on a channel or they're looking at a Twitter feed, that someone is saying something based on an opinion. There's, you know, that unless you're a scientist and reading a science paper, which has still got a little bias in it because it's a human, there is a bias going on. People want to sell you their side of things. So,
yeah, I'd say perception is reality. You know, I think things are worse. And I have the perspective of time and in a different news cycle and a different repetition, a different frequency, repetitive frequency of a news story. I believe that things are worse. And I think that what you're asking for to teach the children does happen. My daughter had an assignment when she was in grade school which dealt with Wikipedia as a source and how dangerous that could be. And the teacher actually went through and told everybody to use Wikipedia for this paper they were writing, and then went through and dispelled that some idiot just put up a fact. You know, no, ISIS is not being led by Sacha Baron Cohen. You know, it would be, even though he sounds like that guy, you can't read that on Wiki and take it as a fact. But it does come back to this thing about the media in that they've lost their credibility. So we have the frequency, you know, it's a brisket without the meat, which is basically a bone. We're boned, you know. We don't have anybody being objective. I mean, shows like this and other shows in certain markets, the online world can have some reality to it. But even there, you have another person or entity just frequency throwing lies and factoids, which are non-facts. So until we can figure out a way to get that objectivity back and get the profit center out of news, out of media, which is really the problem, we're going to be in trouble. We're going to be all chasing the wrong facts over and over and over every 15 minutes on the hour.
So to that point, last question on this, I kind of feel like because we don't trust the media and because we don't trust our politicians, I've been feeling lately, I think it's sort of kicked in over the summer, that we kind of don't know what America is anymore. Like there's a real feeling amongst, I'm not talking about the left and the right, but like pretty much everybody else, which is most of us, even though they make it seem like the rational people are only a tiny bit, it's most of us, I think. That we just don't know what we are anymore. Like, are we the interventionists? Are we the peaceniks? Are we, do you feel that too?
Yeah, and even more than that, like more than policy, it's like, what, you know, the institutions are all going away. Who do we trust? Who's got the facts? Who's got just a real rational perspective on anything? We don't trust government. We don't trust big business. We don't trust media. We don't trust, you know, we don't trust anyone. And so we're having to find our own kind of inner GPS with all of this. And I think that's part of feeding all of the frenzy too, is like, you know, we're looking for information. I'm willing to give you more information. And I think it's a natural outcome of modern society, the breakdown of institutions, what's going on. And you know, we're in the middle of it. We're in the middle of the chaos of all of this.
Yeah, Chad, end us on a positive note. Is there something good out of that? Could something good come out of us having to sort of recenter ourselves? Because if we don't trust the institutions, we have to trust ourselves. Give me something. Give me some hope.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's an app for it. I'm going to pull it up right now. No, we're, you know, whoever thought the term "fucked at birth" was going to be actually come true.
That was not.
You know, it's hard. It's hard. And does anyone else here have kids? I have kids.
No kids.
Yeah, no, it's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah. I cannot even project what their life will be based on all of the stuff that we're being fed by the media and all of the awareness that we thought we were post-racial. Wrong.
Kelly, that hand better be about hope, because I got to end this segment.
It is, because the bottom line is,
you wanted me to end on a positive.
We don't hear about all the good shit happening. You have to fight for it, you have to look for it, but there's a lot of good stuff happening. People are treating people well, science is doing great things, business is doing great things, government people are doing great things. There are good people out there. There's still humanity.
Nah, that's a load of crap, people, and you should change the channel right now to somebody that'll tell you that the world is going to hell in a handbasket, okay? All right? You have my permission to hate this woman's hope, okay? Because it's not happening. No, look, she's right. There are good things happening. They don't get enough frequency. They don't get enough bandwidth. I think we've woken up. Here's the positive message. We all stood there in that park with Obama, you know, metaphorically. We thought, wow, this is going to be a step forward. And we then spent the next 6 years going, wow, 7 steps back.
Yeah.
But, you know, in like a football analogy, once you get sacked, you dust yourself off and you go on to the next play. Like, we have to now belly up to the bar. And we can't wait, you know, it can't be this thing about waiting for my kids to solve it. We have to hand them something. We have to fix something in the now so that the next generation who's really clueless can figure out how to move forward.
All right, you ended me on a positive note. I appreciate it. From ISIS and the government. Now let's talk about the serious stuff. There is a new iPhone coming, and it's going to be announced by Apple in just a couple days on September 9th. And my inside sources, yahoo.com, tell me that it's going to be released. The 4.7-inch will be released on September 19th. Don't quote me on that, but that's what they're telling me. Now we can go to the wide shot, because we all have... Are you guys even paying it?
Huh?
No,
We're doing this thing here.
I just learned that ISIS killed the 5.5.
Oh,
the phone.
The phone?
Yeah. Okay, so we've all got these things, so we fully admit it. We have 3 iPhone people here. I've got an iPad, I've got a MacBook, which I knocked a glass of water on this week, and then my blow dried, which ended up melting the keyboard, but I still have a MacBook. You got a MacBook?
I know you. First Mac since 1984.
All right, so you're in it too.
I sign on early.
Chad, you have a MacBook or an Apple? Are you on the PC? What are you?
I am a Mac guy. I've spent millions of dollars on Apple.
Apple suppositories.
Okay, so you have the facts. We have all fessed up.
Bias.
We're in it. We're in
Bias.
it. We're in it with the Apple products. Now I want to show you. There's a couple leaked images of the iPhone 6. So let's just take a look real quick. It's going to be thinner. That's right. It's going to be thinner. So what you're seeing there is the outside back of the case. Let's look at the shot of the casing profile. Thinner, sexy.
Wow.
Isn't that thing sexy? Look at that thing. Let's look at the bottom.
Oh, I just came 3 times.
Oh, he looked at the bottom. So he's an ass man. We now know he's an ass man.
And let's look at the front of the screen. Ooh, and apparently that'll be sapphire glass, which is very hard to break. Okay, so yeah, Apple, blah, blah, blah. We all know it. We kind of love it. We hate it. So that's where I want to start with this thing. Do you guys sort of feel like slaves to Apple? Because that is how I feel. Like when my MacBook broke a couple days ago, I had just been at Apple because my phone, the audio stopped working and I can only use it on speaker. And when I was in there for that, I kept thinking, is this my chance to get out? But then I was like, I got a MacBook at home.
Go?
Do I have to, Samsung, I guess, would be the...
Oh, with this?
Yeah. Or that you can go to, I don't know, who makes computers now? To Dell or is Gateway 2000? Do they still exist?
So who are you going to go to?
Does IBM, is that a company?
I mean, I've got a new guy who works on my Apples at home, and he used to work for the NSA, and he says everyone in the government has Apples, basically.
Right.
Everyone, they make them special for the government workers for CIA. Everyone in the world is working on these machines now, so.
Is this good or bad?
I
don't know what you're telling me.
I'm just saying that, you know,
horrible.
no, I'm saying that if you want the best OS and the most efficient machine, these things tend to do better than the other ones.
Now, I know for a fact the Samsung people in the comments right now are going to blow up because every time we do something pro-Apple, they go, but we have this and that, and we got the other thing.
And if you have Samsung, bless you, and have fun with it. And it does all the same things this does because this invented it.
Uh-oh. She's...
Yeah, no, I think we should all fear Apple.
Yeah.
I think Apple is ultimately a George Orwellian nightmare coming. You know, because then it'll be...
It's already happened.
Yeah, it's here.
No, but the product, you know, we keep hearing like the product in the pipeline. We got 10 years of product. You know what? Let me tell everybody something. Steve Jobs is dead, okay? All right? Time to move on, people, until I start seeing an eye liver and an eye and an eye ear and an eye colon, you know?
Eyeballs.
That's what's going to happen.
How do you do all that with no balls, Joe?
Well,
I did a clit.
I'm trying to keep it clean.
Clit, the eye clit. Yeah.
You know, everything is eventually...
My balls went right over your clitoris.
Apple will be the new ISIS. That's my prediction.
Wow.
Apple will take over.
I don't even know what that means.
It means that, you know, you're going to be loving this corporation that eventually becomes so powerful it becomes a nation state.
So haven't they become everything that they fought against? Because the George Orwell reference, I mean, they did that.
Don't we always?
Well, of course. I mean, that's
how we do it.
That's life, right?
Edge. Mainstream culture takes the edge, assimilates it, and makes it the mainstream.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what happens.
But it's worse. It's worse because, and we've talked about this, you're going to be so locked into something like Apple that at a certain point
you can't get out.
You can't get out.
So it's like the mafia. You
Yeah.
can get in, but you can't get out.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to do small things to resist it, like let my big computer die. I had it for 6 years, which is unheard of in Apple time.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad was an early adopter. He had my dad, did documents and email on his computer. He had the towers with all the computing. You could go to the moon and back with this tower. Every year he got a new one when the new one came out. I don't do that. I resist. I've had a crack in my screen
Fight the power,
for
sister.
over a year. No, not getting a new one, not getting it fixed. Screw you. I'm walking around with a crack. I'm okay with my crack.
Yeah, that's the novice. I already have somebody waiting in line for that 5.5 iPhone. Okay. You know why? Because I was cursed with get close over this, Andre the Giant size thumbs.
Yes.
So doing this on this device, I want to, if they don't release that 5.5, I want to tell you, I'm driving up to Cupertino, and I am punching that guy in the dick.
My understanding was going to be 3 sizes. That's my understanding.
You heard 3? I haven't heard 3 sizes.
No, it's 2 sizes, and if it's not a 5.5, somebody's getting a dick punch.
It's big. It's
Just for the
big.
visual, we should note that you have a smart car, which is one of those tiny little cars. So if you were to get the 5 point, your phone would be bigger than your car.
My phone rides shotgun. Doesn't have to call it, just put it right there.
You want to put a seatbelt on it.
All right, last thought on Apple. So they're building this giant fortress in Cupertino.
Yes.
So an image
It's
just
bigger
came
than
out.
the Pentagon.
Mothership.
Bigger than the Pentagon. It sort of looks like the Pentagon, although not
Except it's round.
shaped. It's round, but it's got like that feeling of a fortress. So to your point,
Yeah,
so
fortress.
when is it? I mean, really,
need to
Apple
eye
has
attack.
more money than the U.S. government. They have liquid assets, and they are just churning out money.
Yes.
When will companies truly surpass the government? I mean, have they already?
Completely,
They've
100%.
already-
Who's the gentleman, the Eric Cantor this week?
Oh,
Where did he go? He went
we
to
should've
Wall
done that
Street.
story.
No, there's no government is not this biggest thing at all. Big business has way more power, and I think it'll be fun. The Apple Fortress will be fun. It'll be like a Hunger Games kind of a thing, maybe. They'll have like fun things in the middle, and people be killing each other for iPads.
Like Thunderdome.
Thunderdome.
It's all a dystopian future, and we just have to play along, which is why, yes, I talk about this all the time, but I probably will get it because I don't want to fall behind in whatever the future may hold.
Enjoy falling behind, people.
I'll finally win the thumb war. I can't wait.
That'll be it.
5.5.
All right, so speaking of iPhones and all this technology, so an interesting study came out from UCLA studying students' social skills related to smartphones and all this technology. So it's a little technical here, so I'm going to read it. The UCLA psychology department looked at 2 groups of 11 to 12-year-olds. Half the students spent 5 days at a nature and science camp where digital technology was strictly taboo. Could not do any of this. The participants were forced to interact with each other, talk face to face. It was crazy. It was old school. They were all shown photographs of people and asked to state whether the emotions expressed in the photographs were happy, sad, angry, or frightened. They were then shown videos and asked to describe what was happening in the simple scenarios. Okay, I think you could follow along there. Now let's look at the findings. During the research, one group made significantly more progress than the other. The group deprived of all digital media, even television, performed significantly better at recognizing emotions than those who allowed to keep texting and tweeting and talking on Facebook after just 5 days. We've got a quote from the researcher. He said, many people are looking at the benefits of digital media in education, and not many are looking at the costs. Decreased sensitivity to emotional cues, losing the ability to understand the emotions of other people is one of the costs. So let's stop there for a second. Let's just talk about that. Now, we just did the segment on the iPhones and the addiction to this thing and all that. I see this every day in life. Every day. I'm walking around, and I admit, you guys know how much I tweet, so I'm not, I'm putting it out there. And we're doing this on YouTube, and we're all on Facebook and all that. But I see this constantly now. People walking like this, literally crashing into shit. People, you're talking to someone, literally making eye contact with them, and saying something important, and then they and then just in the middle, they just start doing this.
You've been talking to my daughter, it looks like.
Yeah. How old's your daughter?
They're both, one is 23, and the other one is 19.
Okay, so they're a little ahead of these in age, but certainly younger than us.
But they've been trained well.
So do you see this every day in your life? This endless lack of attention, people forgetting things.
You feel it at a social setting, which the 3 of us have been together. But when we're all the phones are away and it's everything, and we're just connecting, and it's really great and everything. And the minute one person takes the phone out, it gives permission to everyone else in the thing, like, oh, okay, well, I'll check the email, whatever. And now there's like a silence comes over, and you can feel the disconnect. And then when everyone puts it away, it takes a moment to like, oh, we were re-engaging. Like it's the whole other part of the animal mind comes forward and, oh, okay, that's right, connection, social cues.
Yeah.
I find that to be just the energy that happens in a room, the shift around people around that. Fascinating.
Yeah, we did a story on how it literally is rewiring people's brains, because you're not supposed to be inundated with information constantly, and we're actually changing how we think.
I just heard a social scientist talk about this on another show, and he said, you know, actually evolution of this kind of stuff, yes, there's a rewiring of the brain, but a real evolution takes about 1,000 years for the species.
But could this be speeding it up? Because I've seen that type of studies too, and that maybe...
They don't think so. I mean, in the short term, it's definitely affecting things,
Again, they did
but
not
it's
speak
not
to my
actually
kids.
evolving. But you know, we'll see in 50 years.
Look, honestly, true story. My daughter just went back down to school for her 2nd year of college because I have money to throw away. Okay? I mean, I literally, on the way into the studio, I was just chucking 5s at everybody I walked by. So we're talking, and it's, you know, I'm very much the daddy-daughter thing. You know, it's like, okay, well, this is your 2nd year, and, you know, I know you're switching majors, and like literally 4 sentences in, brought up the phone, and, you know, looked at me and was like, and it was all I could do. It was all I could do. To not just start beating her to death with the phone, which is why the 5.5 iPhone is really going to work for me, because I can do it in less hits. It's a part of their nomenclature. I have a picture of this same kid on an iMac, the original, the one that was like an old TV, with, you know, mousing around on some game, some learning game, some Mavis Beacon teaches typing bullshit. She's like 5 with the bottle, her like bottle, and she's just like.
Yeah.
We've lost this generation to whatever this digital nightmare is. I mean, it's a nightmare that they are so. We almost cured ADD, and then Apple helped us break it again.
But it'll be fascinating, because I think what'll come into the culture, and there'll be a new need in the culture, is people to create space and circumstance and opportunity, and teach people to have emotional intelligence again, which I'm excited about, because that's what I love to do.
That is your thing. All right, well, you've actually given me a perfect segue here, because comedian Patton Oswalt, you guys probably heard about this, he took 3 months, basically the entire summer, off of social media, and he explained why in a Time magazine article that came out this week. In part, he said, what if the next fashionable rebellion from whatever generation rears its head after the millennials is to become unlinked, only reachable face to face? Remember how in the Matrix mankind had become batteries so the machines could just feed off us? Well, it's happening now, just 140 words at a time. I remember when I got out of college in '99, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. We were on a bus somewhere, and we were talking about the meaning of life, the whole thing. I was smoking a lot of pot at the time, and I told him everything I thought about life, and he goes, "Dude, you just told me the plot to The Matrix." but I hadn't seen The Matrix. But that's what I was talking about. That we are one day just going to be batteries for this. It's going to become that important, because this needs us to just.
We make 100 watts of energy in each body. So there you go. We're already a battery.
So
I don't think that's going to run the 5.5. That might be a problem.
That's going to be the problem. You're really obsessed with this 5.5.
You're going to have to chain 3 or 4.
Oh, again, if we can go tight on these thumbs. You know, this is my cross to bear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, look at that. I could eat 4 of those on the hour, and it still wouldn't equal this toe jam that's happening right here. It's a giant thumb. Yeah. It's a giant thumb. You're welcome, America.
Well, we know what we're making the GIF out of this week for the show.
The thumb.
The thumb.
The thumb.
What, do you think, though, this unlinked idea, that's what you're talking about, that maybe this next generation, after, you know, we had the nude hack this week and the NSA, and we're all so sick of it. And yet we love it, but we're also sick of it, too, that maybe the next generation is kind of going to be like.
But how will we tell everyone we're unlinking?
Yeah, and therein lies the road.
And we all love Patton. Patton is terrific. He's such a great guy, such a great comedian. But I read that whole article. He was like, I took 3 months off, but I checked in on Facebook. I learned. And I didn't do any Twitter, but I liked some of my friends' things who were doing Kickstarter, Indiegogo. So I'm like, okay, so we took 3 months off, or we just kind of lurked for 3 months? And that's what he did. So what's the point? The point is that we are in a digital quicksand. And those of us that are old enough You know, sorry to sound like that guy, but I remember the analog. You know, it's analog. If we don't get back to some form of analog, meeting with people, like the poly, you know, getting together face to face and lessening the amount of times where people pull their stupid phone to check their stupid whatevers, we're in big trouble. It's generational, and the next generation is not gonna, without something major like, you know, the inability to be able to transmit because our network's out, electricity going away, it's not gonna get better. So I don't know if that's a
slightly
positive.
what you're doing with the poly, because
sure.
I think it's really cool, and it's one of the things that by me being in LA has allowed me to put this down, because I don't do this when I'm there. So can you just explain a little bit of what you're doing?
I've been lucky enough to have an incredible group of artists and people come into my life, comedians, musicians, writers, people like you, and we hang out. We have, you know, we meet once a month or so, very casual party atmosphere. And we just connect. We just connect. We have all these, and yes, we'll bring it out if we need to Google something, because we do that so no brain left. But it's a connection of people, and
but even the name itself, Polymind.
The Polymind. Okay, yeah. So the Polymind came about because you know, we have all these voices in our head, and I have all the voices in my head, and I originally made it as like a blog kind of a title. The Polymind Commune is the thing in my head, and what it is it's diversity. It's diversity of perspective. It's diversity of people, and it's what makes the world go round, actually. And you know, part of this is that we've been talking about the whole show. Lack of diversity happens through this, because you pick your Twitter feed, you pick your friends on Facebook, and you pick what channel you get your news from. So you know, and there's something about just hanging out with people and getting to know people.
But it's important because people don't understand what's happening because they're digital. They don't understand the lack of humanity, the loss of human connection. I mean, in all sincerity, if you ever wanted to, let's say you wanted to date somebody, you called a girl up on the phone, that still was an analog moment, because she was hearing your voice and trying to figure out how to get off the phone as fast as possible. With texting, you can be led down that path for longer, because this digital thing is almost it's like sanitizing your interactions. So when we kind of get together as a group, like if you go out to dinner with two other couples or whatever, you think, oh, well, that's social, that's face to face. But that is such a small microcosm of what's necessary to combat what's going on in our society. You've got to get together in groups, hopefully without the tri-pointed hats and, you know, and flintlocks. And meet people and bounce from person to person, as opposed to from web page or Twitter feed to Twitter feed. There's something we're losing, and we're losing our analog social skills.
And learning to look in a person's eyes when you have a conversation, and to feel okay about that.
Oh my God, your eyes are so they're blue.
Thank you. Right? I know.
Glowing.
Glowing, yes.
Glowing.
That's what that study is talking about. Those kids are not learning those skills. So then 25, 30 years down the line, when you have two warring sides of two countries come together to sit in a room to find some common ground, and you can't even really look each other in the eye? Wow.
One tweet to rule them all.
So final thought on that, I think that's a great way to wrap it up, is we even see this now with our political leaders, you know, Rouhani in Iran tweeting at the State Department. But it's like, guys, maybe in a room do this. Like this, everyone thinks it's so great. Look, they're tweeting at each other. It's the greatest thing ever. But actually,
meaningless.
It's totally meaningless. All right, let's move on and talk about lesbian obesity. We can't do a week without lesbian obesity.
So exciting.
The federal government spent about $3 million on a study to find out why a lot of lesbians are obese. Don't believe me? Well, we've got some info. The NIH study is now in its 4th year. The project seeks to determine why, quote, nearly 3/4 of adult lesbians are overweight or obese, and why gay males are not. The study is slated to last until 2016, and the total funding for the project is just about $3 million. So I don't want to focus on why lesbians are obese, unless quickly you want to do you have no
idea why.
None of us are lesbians here.
Well, I'm going to immediately, I'm not going to blame Obama, but I am going to blame the gluten.
It has something to do with gluten.
True. He's a gluten guy.
It's a gluten thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to focus on that part of it. But I thought this brought up an interesting point about just what the government is spending money on, and just kind of what we let them spend money on, and what we don't know they're spending money on,
but
and all that. So let's go there.
I don't know this study in particular, but I'm going to defend science.
Defend science
a little
Please,
bit
here. I think that's legit too.
Which is, you know, when you take a certain population and you study it, you're trying to remove some factors around it to make it easier to have your findings have a little more purity to them. Studying people who have different genetic makeup or a different, I mean, you know, of course people want to believe that lesbians a choice of a lifestyle, but it's clearly it's a nature thing, it's not a nurture thing. So I think it's legitimate. I think it's legitimate. They're probably studying the difference between testosterone and estrogen levels and things like that, and gender. I think it's fascinating, and I think it'll pan out. It'll create a lot of information for the general population. But you know, they're studying a very small slice.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm glad you said that, because yes, I do believe in science funding, and I don't understand all the reasons why we do all these studies, but there's probably some relation there. But when I see these things, I think the average person, when they see this in the news, they immediately think this is like, we need, you know, consultants to come into the government and be like, what the fuck are you guys doing? What, really, lesbian? You know what I mean? Like, is this just one of these things that just sounds so ridiculous, so that even if there is scientific worth to it, it's going to get shit, basically?
Well, the key word is funding, you know, and I read the whole article, and I love the lesbians. They quoted what they would call, I guess, a scientific outcome of this was lower athletic self-esteem. That the lesbians have low. Which is complete bullshit. If you know any lesbians, they're awesome in sports, and most board games.
Yeah. Are lesbians good at board games too? I mean, I played softball with lesbians and rugby.
They're women, so they're smart.
And Jane Lynch is the game host of America's Game Night or whatever it's called.
Wait, Jane Lynch is a lesbian?
I'm sorry, Jane, I outed you.
Can we not out anyone 1 week?
But you know, here's the thing, and then they went on to quote in the article that because you identify with a certain you know, body type, and you may not go out for sports because you're not identifying with that group, or you're afraid of being ridiculed. So what does it come back to? You said it earlier, it's funding. It's not the funding of this study, it's the funding they cut out of school. It's shop classes. When I went to junior high, you had electric shop, metal shop, wood shop. You had graphic art design. We used to silk screen shirts. Yeah. Now somewhere in there is a lesbian, you know, Xanadu. You know, and quite frankly, if you were funding that, the lesbians could go through the shop classes, find something that was their passion, and go on to be the next imprint revolution, which by the way is on Pico, and they're going to sponsor.
Wait, and then that would lead to thinner lesbians, I think is what you're saying.
Well, thinner or fatter is really kind of a
higher self-esteem.
There would be higher self-esteem at any weight.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be focused on why are they fat as opposed to why don't they have hobbies.
Yeah.
And this all goes back. There are lipstick lesbians too. So you know, I'm just making that point. And there are,
well,
you know,
they said 3/4, so you might have 25%.
Okay, that's fine. And then there's the metrosexual gay guys, and then there's the bear gay guy. I mean, you know, it's a population, people.
Yeah.
But you have to give. You have in the formative years, because we keep. You know, again, because we're doing studies like this, this has got to be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, ever. But it's because then the tri-hat people, you know, the T people will go, now we got to cut everything.
Right.
So you get like a Jarvis, a Prop 13, and they cut the stuff that would help kids to identify with new groups and to identify with new things they like.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, you cut shop class.
Well, that's why I wanted to do this segment, because I want people to see that, yes, this sounds silly and we can make jokes about it, but to your point, we do need science and all that. So last thought on this, when I was reading this, I was also thinking this is kind of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, like the NIH. I feel like there's just a lot of shit going on there that we don't know about, and maybe we shouldn't know. Like maybe they're working on the everlasting gobstopper right now, and we can't know about it right now because it's all to that science thing. So we kind of just have to let them, right? We do have to fund some of this and not know what's going on, kind of.
And the thing is, you know, the way it's supposed to work is you elect people who oversee these things, people that you supposedly trust. We no longer.
Therein lies the rub.
We no longer trust the people that oversee it, so therefore we no longer trust.
Think about it. If we went back to the proposal, the grant for this study, was that someone who's going to, we're going to cure lesbianism once we get them thin, you know, once they have options. Like you have to really look at what's behind this study, which they do not mention. They sort of like put out a paper.
I trust that, you know, 90% of the scientists out there have good intentions to find out, you know, things that are going to help humanity as a whole. I really do. But, you know, I don't know the NIH. I'm sure there's a lot of politics and all of that. And You know, and yeah, it's ridiculous on paper, and it could be ridiculous, and of course the media puts it out there to make us all mad about it.
All right, let's talk about psychopaths. I think a fitting way to end this show with these two psychopaths that I'm sitting next to. But first, let's look at the definition of psychopaths. Psychopathy is a personality disorder characterized by shallow emotions, in particular reduced fear, stress tolerance, lacking empathy, cold-heartedness, lacking guilt, egocentricity, superficial character, manipulativeness, irresponsibility, impulsivity, and antisocial behaviors such as parasitic lifestyle and criminality. Now, I bring this up not because I just want to talk about psychos, but because Time Magazine had an interesting article on the type of professions that kind of breed psychopaths versus the ones that don't. So let's take a look at that. Okay, and now here's where we're all going to be in trouble. The ones that breed psychopathy. Number 1, CEO. I think we're all going to have fun with that. We're just going to read a couple of them. 2, lawyer. 3, media, TV, radio. Let's put /internet there, and then we're all in trouble. Salesperson, surgeon, journalist. Now, you can see most of these things, with the exception of police officers, these are pretty well-paying jobs,
Wait,
generally.
clergy person?
That's the interesting one. Hold that one.
I missed that one.
Now look at the ones that do not breed psychopathy, and this is really fascinating. So care aide, nurse, therapist, craftsperson, charity worker, teacher, creative artist, doctor, accountant. Okay.
Oh no, my account is absolutely psychopath. That needs to flip over.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you, wait, can you put that back up
put
again?
That up again.
I mean, we could also do this, like we could have like a little like head of like, let's say Bill O'Reilly. Yeah. And you could just like magnet, you could just go, well, he's a CEO, boom. I think he's a lawyer,
Media.
boom. Media, TV, radio, nah, that one doesn't fit. He's a salesperson, boom. I think he played a surgeon once on TV, boom. Calls himself a journalist, I mean, you know, literally look at all the people we know that fit 1 through 3, 7, and 10.
But here's the deal.
All right, so clean this up for me, because I don't want to feel that we're psychopaths.
Well,
we're all number 3.
Well, it's, you know, there's a lot of gray area. You know, the other thing they had in this article was the list of traits, you know, and how you could kind of, you know, say the name of these traits differently. And I thought charismatic was one, and then superficial charm was the nice, you know, the kind of meaner way of saying it. Person who can make hard decisions could also be seen as the person who has emotional poverty. You know, so there is a continuum here. And I think during the day, we swing between not psychopath and not, you know, blob of amoeba, which I think is the 2 extremes here. Right. We cycle between these 2 things because we have sometimes we have to make the hard decision, and sometimes we have to be the one with the shoulder that you cry on. And I think for many of us in this business in particular, we feel torn because if you're in showbiz, we know it's cutthroat. It is a psychopathic industry. It doesn't believe in caring about your family, your mental health, your physical health, just as a worker in it.
Right. It will chew you up and spit you out, and you'll keep coming back.
Expectation, everything, because we are creative artists and we're looking for an outlet. So, you know, but the thing is, when you look at these CEOs and see the decisions they need to make and see how some of them run their companies, and hedge fund guys too, hedge fund guys, even scarier, that really, when I first learned about this, a couple of years ago I learned about this, really just chilled me to the bone to think, wow, we are, like all of our greatest MBA programs are training people to be more psychopathic and less here for humanity. No wonder we're in the shape we're in right now.
So to that point then, aren't these people, the hedge fund guys and the guys on Wall Street that are doing all these, you know, I don't even know what the words, the annuities and all the trickery, all the financial trickery and the derivatives and all that, they're doing it at a computer, so they're not even seeing the human end of it. So does even, we've talked a lot about technology today, but it's now creeped into, they don't have to see the people that they're fucking over, basically.
Yes, for sure.
Yes, and I just remember that from American Psycho. I have to go return some videotapes.
Yeah, everyone thought that guy was a pretty upstanding citizen, huh?
Yeah.
No, it's all connected, as my mother would love to say. It's all connected. It's again a lack of analog. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't have funding. You don't identify people early enough because you're not really interfacing with them. There's not enough social work being done in the primary school system to identify people that need help and that need a little special extra attention, i.e. watching very closely. They're then pushed through the system. They have all of the things on your list that they haven't mastered, and yet they learned how to kind of mask them.
And we're rewarded for it.
And then start getting rewarded for it.
Yeah, Puritan work ethic. You know, hard work, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You're going to be rewarded in the afterlife.
Yeah.
That was the original concept of that. You're going to be rewarded in the afterlife. So do what you have to do in this, in this area, because you're going to be rewarded if you're successful in the end.
Yeah.
And
I'm more of a reward, you'll get it here kind of guy. I hope.
Yeah.
That's what I always hope.
But think of the
big question mark about the afterlife
the
thing.
black and white nature of how there was like 2 columns, and there was the left column and the right column. Could you start having discussions like, General George Patton, psychopath?
Well, yeah.
Like start to think about it in the gray of that certain traits, certain ability to be emotionally dead inside or cut off from every emotion makes you effective at certain jobs. And in certain situations when you're fighting World War II, you can't have everybody out there going, so how do you feel about this landmine field?
You can't have a KPFK
So
community
we have to think
meeting.
about it in, not that we need to breed psychopaths, but we can't just think about like good or bad and that they're all Patrick Bateman, which looks good on film.
And then it's situational. I mean, a therapist, if you're dealing with a client who's suicidal, you're not going to be like, oh, let me give you a hug. You're like, I'm sorry, I'm putting you in for a 48 hold because you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
You have to be the dictator in that moment, and you have to be, the cold and have some emotional poverty. You can't be aching with your depressed patient.
Yeah.
So it's very situational.
That's interesting, the idea that, so for the money guys, they need the distance and can just look at the computer so they can screw the people they don't know. But for the soldiers and the military commanders, they need the reverse in a weird way.
And what does Army training
because they
do?
can't.
What does boot camp?
First thing it does.
It deadens you. Look at some of the, again, we're quoting
dehumanizes
films.
the enemy.
But look at Full Metal Jacket. Look at what that process of that film was. Part of that journey was taking this funny guy who they called the Joker, Matthew Modine, and just dehumanizing him to the point where in that fateful scene he can draw down on that female sniper and blow her away. That's the journey to psychopathy. It's just interesting.
All right, so let's bring it home and talk about money, because there obviously is some connection between all this and money. If you looked at the left-hand column, a lot of money there.
A lot of money there.
Right-hand column, the nurses not making that much money, the therapists, things like that. So how much of this is inherently related to the quest for money, I guess?
All of it, I think. I mean, I said the culture, the culture supports. The more psychopathic you are, but you're not killing and actually murdering people, the more likely you're going to do well in business. I mean, that's the way the business model is set up. There's not a lot of humanity in any, it's funny because, you look at lawyers. I mean, there's a lot of great lawyers who work for free, and they're there because they're trying to do good and they're trying to bring actual justice. There's a lot of people, well, there's people on the left, that left column, that do it for the right reasons. But yeah, this culture is set. I mean, we watch football every weekend.
By the way, who do you like in the opener?
Yeah, by the way.
Look, think about it this way. If let's go Citizens United. If corporations are people, maybe we just have to have those corporations deemed psychopaths.
Yes, put them away in an institution.
Ding, ding, and that is your show for this week. I am
Kelly Carlin. No, Dave Rubin.
She is
Kelly Carlin.
And was that?
He is.
And Chad
Einbinder.
There you go. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Their Twitters are right down below. Comment, subscribe, all that fancy stuff, and take a break from the digital thing every now and again.
But then don't watch us.
There you go. Right. Thanks, guys.